Jessie Norman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, for letting me catch your eye, and welcome to the Chair. May I also welcome ministers on our side of the House to the dispatch box and, of course, the Minister on the other side of the House. May I congratulate him on his position on the opposition benches. I must say I have a huge personal interest in the emerging economies, and it's a great joy to be able to speak here tonight. Many years ago, I ran an educational charity giving away new medical textbooks throughout Eastern Europe during and after the communist period, and it's been a particular delight to hear the expertise displayed by the members for South Thanet and Reading West in their excellent Maiden speeches. When I was in Eastern Europe, Madam Deputy Speaker, it was a time when civil society was the subject of constant political oppression. Economic activity was shackled by commissars and petty regulation, and industry funded by an open chequebook from government. The result was colossal debt and economic stagnation. How very different from the situation which faces the UK today. I know every member of this House will join me in saying that it is the greatest honour of all to be chosen to sit in this august chamber, to have a share, however small, in the supreme sovereign authority in this country, and to walk in these hallowed halls and corridors as so many extraordinary men and women have walked before us. First impressions not always so favourable. One thinks of Mark Twain, who said, and I hope the House will forgive my accent, "When I first came to Memphis, I found men drinking and gambling and open prostitution in the streets. It was no place for a Presbyterian, and I did not long remain one." But as for me, I enter this House, as I hope I will remain, filled with a sense of due reverence and due responsibility. And I must say I feel doubly privileged in that I stand here as one of two tribunes for the people of Herefordshire. Truly, Herefordshire is a glorious county, known throughout the world for the quality of its cider, its beef, and its soldiers. Such is its beauty that it has been only slightly disfigured by a recent association with the noble Lord Mandleson, who has added Foy in the county of Herefordshire to an already rather extensive title. I direct the new member for Hartlepool to this unfortunate precedent. Alas, we still look in vain for the tidal wave of public subsidy that usually accompanies Lord Mandleson wherever he goes. My constituency stretches from the Black Mountains in the west to the Forest of Dean. It encompasses the Golden Valley, aptly named the gorgeous Monnow and Wye Valleys, Hereford itself, with its magnificent cathedral and Mappa Mundi, through apple orchards, lovely churchyards, fine rolling arable land, wildlife and pasture, all the way down to Ross-on-Wye and the spectacular rock of Simmons Yat. I'm not, in fact, the first Norman to be returned to Parliament from Herefordshire. That honour goes to its very earliest representatives, Rogerus Le Roux and Ricardus Le Brute, who were summoned to meet at Westminster on the 15th of July, 1290, in the reign of Edward I, barely 200 years after the Norman conquest, the first Norman conquest. At that time, Herefordshire was regarded as the farthest outpost of Western civilization, a status which some Herefordians would argue it retains to this day. South Herefordshire has always been well served by its MPs, and I would like to pay particular tribute to my predecessor, Paul Keach, a Herefordian born and bred, who built up a reputation over 13 years as a fine constituency MP. Hereford City reputedly has the largest container of alcoholic beverage in the world, I should say outside the Palace of Westminster, at Bulmer's, and Paul has worked very hard over many years to protect and support the cider industry, most recently against the ill-advised depredations of the cider duty. I should also like to pay tribute to Sir Colin Shepherd before him, whom many honourable members will recall for his 23 years of dedicated service to this House. He and his wife Lady Lou have been tireless in their support of the county and of its newest MP. But Herefordshire is not, or not yet, a Garden of Eden. On the contrary, it has many social and economic problems which demand vigorous public action. Like other rural areas, it has not been at the top of the government's agenda in recent years, to say the least. On the contrary, our schools are the third worst funded in the UK. Local wages are very low. Farmers struggle with the many inadequacies of DEFRA. Young people lack decent leisure facilities. The very idea of a functional broadband connection, or even of a decent mobile telephone signal, has yet to be entertained in many parts of my county. And Hereford, a lovely medieval city which received its royal charter in 1189, is being strangled by traffic. These and greater support for higher education in the county will be among my personal priorities as the new MP. However, we are not sent to this House only to represent our constituents, but to play a role in the wider governance of this country. And I want to spend a moment or two on this topic, if I may. The new government has made a superb early start in opening up sources of data about spending across the public sector. But what matters is not merely what we think about, but how we think about it. Our task is to remedy not just a colossal failure of governance over the last 13 years, but a colossal failure of thought. Now, politicians are generally pretty nervous about talking about abstract ideas. In the words of the late, great Ernie Bevan, and I won't attempt an accent on this, open up that there Pandora's box, and who knows what Trojan horses won't jump out of it. But of course, to dismiss ideas is itself to be ruled by an idea. Ideas are always in charge, so it is important, nay vital, to choose the right ones. Now, the idea of revolution is never dear to a conservative, but I think even Edmund Burke would agree that we need a revolution in how we think about economics in government. Over the past 2 decades, British government has become steeped in a 1970s caricature, a view in which markets are always efficient, prices reflect perfect information, and institutions are nowhere to be found. One would be tempted to call such a view neoliberal, were we not in a time of coalition government. Worse than that, the deep assumption remains that human beings are purely economic rather than social animals. This dismal gospel regards the human world as static, not dynamic, as a world of fixed social engineering, not one of creation, discovery, and competition. In policy terms, this textbook economics takes power away from local people. It encourages centralization and top-down meddling. It pushes us towards an inefficient, inhumane, and factory-style view of public services. It is absurdly risk-averse. And in its apparent inevitability, it stifles public debate about other, more thoughtful approaches. Above all, it actively undermines the ideas of public service, public vocation, and public duty, ideas which I know lie close to the heart of every member of this House. Now is the moment to re-examine these assumptions. Politics is not a subset of economics, and economics is not a subset of the financial sector. GDP growth is important. Goodness knows that's true. But so are flexibility, resilience, and above all, entrepreneurship in our economy. We need a new economics in our government, not the desiccated economic atomism of the old textbooks. And we need to see people for what they really are, as bundles of human capability, creative, dynamic, and fizzing with imagination and potential. Now, if we do this, and only if we do this, then we can revive our economy on a huge billow of human energy, one that is barely conceivable within our current economic conventional models. And we can help to restore the trust and the mutual respect that our society so badly requires. It was that great, and let me say rather conservative economist, John Maynard Keynes, who once warned politicians not to be the slaves of some defunct economist. So let us all cry freedom and move on.